Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next session. And this is going to be a gold sponsor session with the Denise Amber Lee Foundation. Thank you so very much for everything. And this session is going to be headed by Tina DeCola, and she's going to be doing a session called Human Trafficking Preparedness for the Non-Professional. Take it away, my friend.
Oh, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ricardo. Um, this session is going to be, like Ricardo said, about human trafficking awareness. We're going to go over a basic human trafficking 101. We're going to go into some detail about the traffickers, about the victims, about how to use a victim-centered approach. And I'm also going to share with everyone um, the protocol that we use in Las Vegas. And just to let everyone know, um, this is a information on human trafficking. Some of the context and some of the photos may be a little bit graphic. If it is something that is triggering to you, please, if you need to step away from the screen, please do so and take care of yourselves. Again, this content may be a little bit triggering to some.
Every day we go about our lives driven by routine and blindfolded to the realities of the world around us. Our vision is clouded by the very normalcy we take for granted. Countless victims of human trafficking walk among us, seemingly invisible. Until now. The Blue Campaign provides a unified voice for those who oppose the heinous crime of human trafficking. Whether it's forced labor, domestic servitude, or the sex trade, it's time we open our eyes.
Sorry, I didn't even see you. You're one of the dust. Come along.
Learn what you can do to help by visiting dhs.gov/bluecampaign.
And that's exactly how it is, right? Like these victims are right in our everyday lives, right? We honestly, oh, I just lost my screen here. We honestly just never know where they're going to be. Okay, so I just lost my screen. Poor Ricardo, he's going to have a tough time with me today. So, anyway, gosh, I'm so sorry, everyone. Let me get back to my screen. There it is. Okay, so we honestly never know, right? It's not something that's going to be right in front of us. It's not what we think it is. And in this session this morning, we're also going to dispel some myths as well about what human trafficking is. So basically, human trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act, where force, fraud, or coercion must be proven, right? When the third party, a pimp, is benefiting from the sexual activity of the victim, unless the victim is under the age of 18. If the victim is a minor, they do not have to prove force, fraud, or coercion, right? They're sexually exploited children, and they don't have to prove that. Human trafficking, sadly, is the second largest criminal industry in the world behind drug trafficking. It just surpassed illegal arms trafficking. It's the fastest growing criminal industry in the United States. And we all have the news and we all have social media. And we're kind of seeing how it's playing out with these Hollywood elitists and others that are coming out in the news and victims that are coming forward that they have been victimized by people that we listen to on the radio or what have you. It generates billions of dollars worldwide. The victims are of all ages and races and gender. Boys are trafficked too. But we are going to be mostly talking about girls in this class, this session today. The average age of victims into this lifestyle is about 12 to 14 years old. It's that very vulnerable middle school age. It's not just smuggling. We see, like, especially during the election, we saw a lot of that with the border and things of that nature. Smuggling is a different crime, and we'll go into that in a little bit. Forced labor also, it definitely happens everywhere. It happens in Las Vegas. It happens in nail salons. It happens in hotels and casinos. It happens in places that have a lot of agriculture or massage parlors. Anywhere a victim can be found and where these traffickers can make money, that's who they're going to target. And you can see on this map on the bottom, there is no area that is immune to any of this type of crime. When I travel, I teach this class quite frequently for the Denise Amber Lee Foundation. I have people tell me, well, we don't really have that issue. And honestly, everyone has this issue. This is not isolated to border towns. This is not isolated to Las Vegas. This is a human being issue. This is a United States problem. This is everybody's problem. A lot of people also think prostitution is legal in Las Vegas. Yes.
Really quick, I just need you to share your presentation back because it ended up going off.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry, Ricardo.
No, you're good.
Okay. So window and then share.
Hmm.
I'm so sorry, everybody. Is that better, Ricardo?
There you go. Yeah, and then if you just keep the cursor on the PowerPoint there when you're clicking through or even pressing through, that'll keep it
Okay.
good to go there. So you're good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So people think in Las Vegas that it's legal, right? It's not. I'm telling you, if you come to Las Vegas and you think that this is illegal, like this is something that you want to participate in, please don't. It is illegal. It is a crime that we take very, very seriously in Las Vegas. People also think that it's isolated to the Strip. It's not. These are very young girls out on highways, out on various streets in Southern Nevada that are being victimized, that are being trafficked. So again, it's not what we think it is. It's not the escorts. It's not the high end. It's not Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. It's not what Hollywood portrays this to be. It's a very violent, horrible crime that happens to children and adults every single day. These are some of the statistics from last year that we had in Las Vegas. So out of those statistics, those are the ones that we were actually recovered. I'm going to be interested to see what the statistics are from this whole year when we put them together in January. But you saw on the screen that 22 persons were arrested from attempting to buy from a juvenile. One of the persons that were trying to purchase actually thought that they were talking to an 8-year-old child. And this individual actually crossed 3 state lines to meet up with this child that he thought he was meeting up with. It was actually a detective that he met up with. And when they went through his vehicle, he had things in his vehicle to do great harm to what he thought was an 8-year-old. So again, these are definitely not nice people. These are definitely not who we think they are. Again, and these victims are kids we know. These are kids that we may have taken to soccer practice or to dance class, or our kids may go to school with, or etc. So again, removing those myths is also super important. We see a lot of things like on TikTok, and we see things on social media. And again, it's helpful, right? We want to make sure that we're getting the word out, but we want to make sure that we're getting it out properly, because we want to make sure that, first of all, we're looking for the right things. But second of all, if the victims see this type of things on social media, they may not relate to that and say, "Oh, well, that's not happening to me. That's not how I got into this, so I'm not a victim." So again, the creepy van with the blacked out windows, don't approach it because you're going to be trafficked. You shouldn't approach a van that you don't know anyway, right? So be smart and use common sense and that type of thing. But again, these things are not always human trafficking. The victims being bound and that type of thing, mostly the bond that they have with their trafficker is that emotional bond, that trauma bond that they have with them. So again, these things may not these things a lot of the times are just not true. So again, we want to make sure that we're getting factual information out there. That way we know what we're looking for, and again, that we know that victims can identify with it and hopefully get the help that they absolutely need. Different signs of prostitution that you're going to see in this session are the tattoos, anything synonymous with wealth or money, anything with that lifestyle language on it, anything that shows any type of ownership, that type of thing. A soft brand may be a necklace with a very large medallion that the trafficker may have, and the victims may have the same necklace with a smaller matching medallion. They may be very reluctant to explain their tattoos. Anyone that has tattoos can tell you when they got it, why they got it, etc. Where the victims have been mostly branded. I have been working with a not-for-profit out here called Security Alliance for Survivors. And we have been training all of the weekly hotels, the Motel 6s, and that type of thing. Sometimes those can be a hotbed for trafficking. I had a gentleman that was in security. He was covered with tattoos. As I was going through these tattoos, he was actually really mad. And I thought, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't offend him by talking about tattoos or, what have you. And so after class, I asked him, I said, "Hey, are you okay? You seemed very upset about the tattoo." And he said, I had a gal come in that wanted a certain type of tattoo. And I'm going to show you that picture in a second. And now that I see that, and when she said she couldn't get it until her boyfriend approved it. So now he's going to be very hyper aware because he was a tattoo artist on the side. So again, you never know who you're going to run into in this. So again, just be vigilant. They may be very dentally, medically, or sleep deprived because again, they're working late hours or weekends or what have you. They may have more than one cell phone. They usually have like a burner phone that they're communicating with their trafficker or the buyers. Behaviorally, they may make little or no eye contact with us. These traffickers train the victims not to trust us, right? So when they do have that opportunity or are brave enough to call 911, we want to make sure that we're taking advantage and we're listening for everything that we can and get them, again, the help that they need. These are some of the tattoos that are out there. The trafficker's name here on the screen. The crown of jewels with the diamond underneath it, again, showing wealth. The trafficker's initials with the crown of jewels, very popular. The barcode. This one, as you can tell, the one on the top doesn't look super professional, but the one on the bottom does. So this was the tattoo that the young gal came in and talked to the gentleman that I met. Her boyfriend wanted her to get a barcode. So again, that was kind of a big red flag that just really stood out to him. And he was like super upset. And now he's going to be hyper aware when persons come in. A group that I also work with called Free International, they do twice a year what's called the Big Search. And they go out and look for missing and exploited children and victims of human trafficking. They have a tattoo artist that accompanies them, and they will do cover-ups for free for former victims. So when I met her, I asked her what to look for. And she said, look for anything that doesn't look super professional. Look for something that's kind of maybe, etched in, and have the first responders simply ask them, hey, that's different. What does that mean? Or whatever, because any of us that have tattoos can explain why we got what we got. So anything that kind of stands out that doesn't look maybe super professional, simply ask. These are pimp tattoos. This is a naked lady with $100 bill wrapped around her. And again, money is everything to the trafficker, and the female is nothing but a means to make that money. So doing the training that we've been doing, I have just recently met with our highway patrol folks. And because it's super easy also to move these victims via our highways. There's 17 highways that interconnect all through the United States, right? And it's really easy to move these victims in a vehicle. It's not as easy to spot like on an airline where they're sitting isolated in an airplane. So we have been educating our highway patrol. Actually, Texas has an amazing program for training because, again, just moving these victims via the highways, the trafficker tries to stay low. And they're able also to work these victims all over the place. Truck stops, they're able to work them in different areas that they know that they can make money. So again, our highway patrol dispatchers and our highway patrol partners are super important players to as far as human trafficking awareness as well. So where are these traffickers recruiting our kids? They're recruiting them from anywhere children are. Schools, peers can actually recruit each other, right? Again, we're talking about a lot of money here. Group homes, sadly, children in foster care are very vulnerable. They've either been removed from the only home that they've known. Maybe that home is not the best home, but it's still their home. It's still a parent that they love or siblings that they're with. Now they've been removed from that home or maybe removed, separated from their siblings. So they're looking for that love and affection. They're looking for that attention. They're looking for someone to love them, a sense of belonging, that type of thing. So these kids are super, super vulnerable. Shopping malls, kids hang out at shopping malls, but social media by far is the easiest avenue for our traffickers to interact with our kids. All of these social media sites have messaging features. Even Words with Friends has a messaging feature. Roblox has a messaging feature. Again, and it's super easy for these traffickers to talk to our kids. So again, not just as a first responder, but as a parent, we need to be aware of who our kids are talking to, what sites that they're on, etc. Classified advertising websites. It's not illegal to get on these escort sites or sugar daddy sites or these types of things to meet an adult or have that adult companionship. It's not illegal, but we all know kind of what's happening here, right? Bus stops, we found that we have a large runaway community in Southern Nevada. These kids are ending up at bus stops. They don't have any place to go. So instead of making these kids go to juvie or trespassing them, we've been educating our public transportation to make sure that we're able to identify these kids and get them to a safe place and have the victim advocate group come out with law enforcement as well. Places of employment, strip clubs, massage parlors, those types of places, big hotbeds for trafficking. Again, any place that a trafficker can find a victim, that's exactly where they're going to target. This study was done actually at the beginning of COVID. It would be interesting to me, and I'm going to hopefully get the statistics soon, how this is kind of evolved since COVID, especially since that's the time that especially our children were on their computers all the time. My daughter was in high school during COVID, and she was a dance. She did dance, traveling, competitive dance, and she actually even had to do dance on Zoom. So again, our kids were always on their computers, right? So 59% of online active recruitment was on Facebook. Um, and for our kids, 65% of these victims were contacted on Facebook, 14% on Instagram, and 8% on Snapchat. So again, we've got to be aware of who our kids are talking to, right? These traffickers are becoming very tech savvy. They know what they're doing, right? They know where the kids are. They know how to talk to them. They're very good at it. Or we wouldn't be talking about it. We wouldn't be having classes like this, and this crime wouldn't be escalating the way that it is. So, how do they interact? They don't grab them off the streets and throw them in a van, right? They get to know their victim. A trafficker is again very savvy, and they're very good at what they do. And the victim usually knows the trafficker. So they may approach them as a friend or a boyfriend, get to know them, get to know all about them. It could be even a family member. That happens quite frequently as well. They may approach them with this promise of fame or fortune. You could be a recording artist. That one of the survivors that I work with, that's how she was trafficked in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Her trafficker promised to make her a singing star. One of the other victims that I work with, I'm actually on the board of her not-for-profit. She wanted to be a television star, and that's how her trafficker was able to draw her into this lifestyle as well. They hang around where our kids are, and it's not just out in public, it's on a social media, like I said, and not just social media, but these Xbox games and things where they're able to play live. Again, that's where our kids are, so that's where the traffickers are. Sometimes it takes months to recruit, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, again, the victim usually always knows their trafficker. So they could already know so much about them and be able to turn them out quicker. And we just talked about families trafficking their own children. It's a sad reality, but it happens. Some children are actually born into this lifestyle to be trafficked. Peers recruiting each other. Again, there's a lot of money in this. Gangs are starting to really get involved in this again because of the money. It's not a tangible product that they have to go out and find, like a drug or a firearm or that type of thing. It's a person, and they don't have to go out and replenish. They have this person that they can just kind of keep putting back out into the streets over and over again. And again, the internet, like we just talked about. This is Rebecca Bender. I'm going to play her story. She's one of the survivors in Las Vegas, and her story is very, very familiar. And this is exactly how it happens with these traffickers.
I was born and raised in a small town in Southern Oregon. I was a good kid in school. I grew up in a normal middle class family. I got great grades. I was really active in sports, and I even graduated a year early. I was accepted into Oregon State University, and I had my dorm room already assigned, and I was really excited to move up to Corvallis. But that summer, I got pregnant by my boyfriend. I had to make a real tough decision whether I was going to keep my baby and unenroll from university or get an abortion and keep it all a secret. That was a really tough summer for me. After I had the baby, I had some friends that had gone up to U of O to go to college, and they had an extra room in one of their apartments. It was at that time that I met a boy or a guy who pretended to take interest in me. I really thought he liked me, and we got along really well. He was really funny and charming, and he had a nice car, and he always picked up the tab. He had nice clothes, and he told me he was a record producer, and he had a band up in Portland, and that's why he frequently went out of town. there's a saying that says when you take a child by the hand, you take the mother by the heart. And I really think that's what happened for me, because I had this new little girl and this man who showed this desperate attention towards her. Like he wanted to really help make this family that I really wanted for my daughter. And he invited me to move in with him after about 6 months of dating. I was really excited. I brought him down to Southern Oregon to meet my family, and everything seemed fine until we arrived in Las Vegas. He said we were moving there because that was the entertainment capital of the world, and being a record producer and having a band, that's where they were going to get the most gigs and the most jobs, and that's where his job was leading him. So I desperately wanted to go with him, to be with him, and to start this family that he promised me. He pulled up to an escort service and he said, "This is how it works in Vegas. I've spent a lot of money to get you here. I put first and last on an apartment. I filled your fridge up with food. You're going to need to bring that money back." And I felt trapped. I felt like, how can I get out of this? And you didn't know if you were going to live or die. You didn't know what he was going to do or what he was capable of. And so it was really scary. I can remember just running through the casino thinking, like, these people don't even have a clue what's going on. They're just, cha-ching, cha-ching, Las Vegas, yeah. And they're doing all this stuff, and I'm running for my life. I'm running from the man that has forced me into doing things that I didn't want to do. When you have a trafficker that's waiting at home with your child, it says if you don't bring home $1,500, you're going to find your daughter on the corner. I think I was probably more frightened to go home than I was to be in the room. Because if you got robbed, it was your fault for being stupid. If you got raped, it was your fault for not watching your back. Anything that happened to you was typically your fault, and you incurred more punishment for allowing those things to happen to you. So it made you always walk in fear of your trafficker.
And that's how it happens, right? They get to know their victim. And that's the hook, right? Some of the traffickers will tell them, hey, I've been spending all this money on you to make you a singing star, a recording star. We want to make sure that we get the photos or the records for you, etc. If you just spend some time with these guys, I know them really well. They're really good guys. They're going to pay a lot of money just to hang out with you. Can you just do this once? I've done this so much for you, etc. And then they're in it. Right. And it's almost impossible for them to get out. Some of these victims are very vulnerable due to past abuse experiences, but some kids are just vulnerable. They may be drug addicted or alcohol addicted. Again, this is a way for their trafficker to keep them compliant. The branding type tattoos that we just talked about, bruises or injuries that they can't explain away, definitely are a big sign. Could that be a domestic violence issue? Absolutely. But it also could be a trafficking problem as well. They may appear very malnourished as well. The traffickers will control them for everything, even when they can eat.
It was one of the girls that was involved in our case here in Oklahoma City. She was a child that came out of Wichita, Kansas. She came from a good family. She had a mom and dad at home early in her life. She attended public schools initially and then went on to even attend private schools. By all accounts, she was, an all-American girl. She was socialized well and educated well. And everything was going pretty good for her through her adolescence and up to her early teens until she started to experience some issues that led her down a path that she wasn't real proud of.
Probably the year after I went to private school, started going to a public school. That was my sophomore year. And I didn't really know who I was. I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. I didn't really get along with my dad for a while, but it was just normal teenage problems. And I just get depressed at school.
Two of her friends approached her, two young kids, a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old in Wichita. And they collectively, these three young girls, said, why don't we run away. And Angie thought it was not a bad idea and it might give her a break from what she considered to be a lot of crisis in her life. And one of the girls that she was with said, "Let me call a guy I know in Oklahoma City." And that individual subsequently traveled from Oklahoma City to Wichita, where he picked these three young girls up. Little did they know that he was a pimp.
I started to, feel a little uncomfortable because now I don't even know where we're going. I don't even really, I'm starting to freak out because I don't even know who this guy is. And we were driving past Wichita going to Oklahoma City, and I was just like, I could just get out right now and I could go home and I could tell my parents I'm sorry that I left, and it could just be all okay right now. And just then, like as if he was reading my mind, he turns around and he's like, "Don't even think about asking me to let you out now. You better just tuck and roll." And I was just kind of like, so I'm really gonna have to die before I get to go home now.
As you take this young girl and put her in that environment and have her away from her loved ones, she's going to succumb to that pressure. There's threats of, "I will go get your family." There's threats of, "I'll show these pornographic images to everyone in this town." And he starts to control. And after a very short time, that child has no option but to stay under his command. And for them to break away and to talk to law enforcement or to call and reach out for help, they truly feel, and in some instances, it would be safe to say that their life would come to an end.
We pull up at a truck stop, and it's like an alley just right on the other side of this fence. He's tells us to get out. He tells us what kind of prices we're going to charge and exactly what we're going to do. It was like 20 for a blowjob, 40 for sex, and like 80 for both. And so my friend she kind of looks at me and she's kind of preparing me with her eyes, and then I was just kind of like, "I can help you if you help me, and maybe he won't kill us tonight." So we get out of the car, and he informed us we better not come back without any money. We're walking around. There's lots of semis, and there's also a lot of girls out there, and a lot of them are just they look like half our age. They look like they could be like 8 or 9 years old. Um, so we go and we're knocking on doors, and we just try to keep smiling, just try to pretend that I wanted to be there, and maybe I could just convince myself that maybe this will lead to something better, and maybe maybe I'm seeing it wrong. And once we got inside the bed of the truck, I started to just wish I was dead or something. We get in the first truck, and the guy decides he wants me, so I go back there, and I just have to just pray to God, just please help me, just please let me get through it. And Melissa went through the wallet. He had grandkids as old as us. All I could think about the whole time was how my grandpa could be this guy right now and how that would feel. And I just wanted to die. And I started to just think that maybe I deserved this for doing this to my parents and to myself. And he didn't have enough money, so we had to go to the next one. And that guy kept his wallet. We just kept praying. And we went to 3 trucks, and we still didn't have enough money. And my friend, she was really upset. She was like, "I think he's really going to be upset if we don't have any money." And so we had to keep going in trucks. And sometimes we would stop and we would cry. And she kept saying, "If you can be strong, I can do it." And I just kept thinking I had to do it because I didn't want anything to happen to her. And I would never forgive myself if he hurt her because I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
And that's an example of how just a child is vulnerable and not groomed for months and months. She was vulnerable from running away and she was stuck in it. Again, we're not looking for super nice people here. We're looking for people that are victimizing children, victimizing men and women also. Like I stated earlier, the average age into this lifestyle is about 12 to 14 years old. Runaways make up a large population of victims. Again, running away to areas such as Las Vegas, where it's like 120 degrees in the summertime. They're out on the streets and they're out in the elements. And if a trafficker tries to promise them a place to stay or a better lifestyle, that's pretty enticing instead of living on the streets, right? A lot of them use that older boyfriend tactic. Again, especially for a young girl that's looking for love and attention, and this nice older person that's showing them lots of attention, bringing them gifts, is something that can be like make them feel like $1,000,000, right? So they're going to absolutely be attracted to that person. I talked about at the very beginning that boys are trafficked too, especially in our LGBTQ plus community. These boys are brave enough to come out to their families, and for whatever reason, maybe it's a religious reason or cultural reasons, or the family just does not want to have a gay child. So they ask the child to leave the home. These kids are sofa surfing with friends or out on the streets, and they're super vulnerable, right? Another really vulnerable group is our transgender group. We had a 911 call. I'll share this with you. We had a 911 call that came into Las Vegas a few years ago. It was August. This victim called in, was talking to one of my veteran dispatchers and explaining to her that she was not feeling very alert. If you're not feeling alert, of course, as we all know, a dispatcher will stay on the phone until a field responder arrives. So my call taker was talking to the victim, hey, the unit's coming down the street, how you're breathing, how you feeling, and just all the things that we do, keeping the victim talking. And the victim shared with my call taker that she had left actually Seattle, Washington, and ended up in Las Vegas. She was being trafficked in Seattle and was living in her car, and the air conditioning went out. So again, the climate, I'm actually in Seattle right now visiting my kids. The climate here in Seattle is extremely different than it is in Las Vegas, especially in August. So and then she also shared that she was born male, but identified as female, and was afraid to contact any of the shelters because for fear of being rejected. So my call taker, of course, being trained in this protocol, was able not only to get her help from medically, but we were able to get the victim advocate group to the hospital, and we were able to get her the resources that she absolutely needed. So again, this is a very vulnerable group of people. So we definitely want to be aware that when they're calling 911, that we are again using that victim-centered approach and using the empathy and sympathy for these victims, again, because sometimes the only number they know to call is 911. So we want to make sure that we're prepared. Being vulnerable, again, there's so many things like listed on the screen that can make a victim vulnerable. Fighting with your parents, wanting to be more independent, running away. Children with developmental and learning disabilities, again, already feel different. So again, it puts them in that category of super vulnerable. So my point of all this is we're not looking for bad kids. We're not looking for kids that you think would fit the the standard of a kid that would be trafficked. It's a vulnerable child. They're sexually exploited children. Don't take the violence of these victims for granted. They are very violent folks. Again, they know that if especially if our field responders are out there, they're getting ready to take away their income. So we want to make sure that we're not only keeping our victims safe, but we're keeping our field responders safe as well. This young lady was beaten by her trafficker. The call came in to Las Vegas Metro as a DV call, domestic violence. But you can see that she's been strangled and beaten by her trafficker. This young lady was burned by her trafficker. She wanted to leave him. She was with another pimp before this guy, and she wanted to get out of the life. So he took an iron and burned the moniker, the nickname of the first trafficker, off of her arm, and then started to burn the tattoos of his nickname or initials, and then turned her around and burned her back to make sure that she was damaged goods. And he advised her if she didn't want to make money for him, he wanted to make sure she wasn't going to be making money for anybody else. This young lady was being trafficked by her half brother, actually. He thought that she was cheating on him. So he bound her feet and arms and deprived her of food and water for a few days and beat her with a telephone cord, electrical cord, and dumped her out in the parking lot. And she had life-threatening injuries. So again, we're not looking for these nice guys, Richard Gere type people. And we definitely don't want to take the violence for granted. And that was something that I really took it to heart when I was putting together the protocol that we use in Southern Nevada. Again, these traffickers know that they stand to lose some income. So we want to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. Why is it important that dispatchers, fire, and EMS get this type of training? Because statistically, 87% of all human trafficking victims have had contact with healthcare professionals. I actually just finished training all of the emergency room nurses in Southern Nevada. I'm actually getting ready to do a few more trainings next week. But 68% of these victims have had contact with EMS. So who are they talking to first? They're talking to us, right? For all of us that are dispatching fire and EMS, they're talking to us. So we want to make sure that we are prepared just as our field responders are prepared. So my call takers, remember when you're talking to the victim to communicate clearly. Because again, this may be the only opportunity that they have to call 911. So we want to make sure that we are communicating clearly. We're giving them all the information that we can. We're being kind. Remind them that they did the right thing by calling. Reassure them that law enforcement and EMS are a safe place for them. And we are going to get them the help that they so absolutely deserve. Use a calm voice, right? They may be very escalated. They may not be very nice to us, which some callers aren't, right? That's just the reality of our profession. But be very calming. Again, they may be all over the place. You may have to repeat yourselves a few times, but they're in a very frantic state usually. And be very patient, right? We want to make sure that we're getting them the help that they need, listening for those clues. They may say things like, I just want an ambulance. Don't send the police, or things of that nature. They may be use a very short speech, or they may be very coded in speech. Maybe saying things like, yeah, I don't know, I guess, and just ask them, are you in a place that you cannot talk? Is there someone around you that is listening to your conversation? Again, these traffickers are very controlling, so they may be monitoring where the victim is or who they're actually speaking to, even if they have the opportunity to call 911. Again, don't use words like abuser or perpetrator. If they don't identify as victims, they still love their trafficker, even though they've been through hell and back. So we don't want to scare them off. We want to make sure that we're able to get an ambulance to them and absolutely law enforcement. Don't pressure them to solve the crime, right? Our main goal is to get them safe. So get as much information as you can, give them as many reassurances as you possibly can, and let them know again that they did the right thing. What we do in Vegas is we type handle with care in the body of the notes. That alerts the field responders that they are going on a possible human trafficking victim. In that way, they can strategize in the rig, and that if they want to wait or if they want to add resources, but it also lets them know that they are getting law enforcement to respond with them as well, especially if it's only an ambulance or the fire department. But be their advocate. They called us for a reason. This is the number that they know. So we want to make sure that we're capitalizing on that opportunity to get them the help. When my field responders are out in the field and they think that they've got a possible victim of human trafficking, I made up a code here, and they just give the code that alerts that alerts my dispatchers that, number one, that they've got a human trafficking issue. Number two, that we need to get law enforcement. Number three, we're not asking a bunch of questions over the air. Our radio traffic sadly is not encrypted for fire and EMS. So we want to make sure that we're not highlighting attention to the scene. because everyone has these apps or these emergency things on Facebook or whatever. So again, we don't want to highlight attention to the scene. Once the victim clears or hopefully transports the victim, they can then call us when they're not with the victim or around the possible trafficker, and then they can call us and we can get that information to law enforcement, especially if they're two separate dispatch centers. Different red flags, again, anything that shows that the victim is like having things, for example, a Louis Vuitton bag and Louboutin shoes or what have you, and they're like 14 and they don't have a job, or their families don't have the means to give them that type of thing, right? Another thing that may be a red flag is history of STDs or a large history of abortion, especially at their very young age. And and we all know, especially those of us that have been doing this. I just recently retired from Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, but I was in public safety for 22 years, and people tell us their whole life story on the phone. So if you get things like that, it could also be another big red flag. And I'm done a little bit early. So I just want to make sure that no one has any questions. I'm having a little bit of difficulty seeing the chat, but I'm hopefully going to be able to catch up later. I'm also going to give my contact information. Again, if you have the opportunity to host a training, I would be happy to come out. Just contact the Denise Amber Lee Foundation. And I'm absolutely happy to come out anywhere and I do a full 8-hour training, and we actually go through quite a lot of information on human trafficking. So I think hi, Ricardo. I think that's about all for me.
All right. Thank you very, very much. What I'm going to do actually is so for everyone who's watching and listening right now, we got a bunch of people in here. We've got folks saying thank you and such. And there we go. So if you want, so I'm going to remove this from the stage. And then for yourself, on your monitor, you can just minimize your presentation. And then you'll be able to see everything there after you've done so.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a few here. That's perfect. Thank you, Ricardo.
Yes. So Erica says this would be great for Central Florida agencies. Thank you. So that's awesome right there. We don't have any actual questions that anyone asked or that had coming in. This was just information that is super important and that everyone was just very into. I mean, I'm sure everyone was dialed in and everything. And so you had your information up there. I hope all of you have taken it down. If not, as soon as we end the session, it goes right into replay mode. And so you can go into it, access it, and go off of it as well. What I will do is actually, Tina, if you can email me just that information that you had put on there, and I can just copy and paste it and put it into the community. So for all of you who are watching and listening as well, I will make sure to
Perfect.
put it into the Trenches community. There's a link right underneath us. It's a big green button. If you press that, that'll take you to the free community where you can join, and I will put it in the attendee feed, and the information will be there as well. Actually, what I'll do is, so in the attendee feed, the promotional slick that has your picture and information and everything on it, I will add the email in a comment to that so that everybody will have it.
Perfect. Thank you, Ricardo.
All right, excellent. Thank you very, very much for what you do and
You're so
continuing
welcome.
to do these sessions and all. And a big thank you to the Denise Amber Lee Foundation as well for being a gold sponsor. So for everyone who's watching and listening, if you go to the upper left-hand corner where it says schedule and you press it and you scroll down, there are going to be now 2 sessions in the silver sponsor group, and you can choose between any of those. And we'll see you all in the next one.